Hello, Daisy.
Hello, Shira.
I am excited to be here today. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I am, oh no, oh no. I am dog sitting and we have a little dilemma.
Okay, that's
Can you
okay.
hear her? Can you hear her?
Rosie wants to be part of the show, I guess. So
Mhm.
we'll let her talk, or we'll ignore her. Yeah.
We will put a stop to this in about 2 seconds. So it's good. Oh my God. Of course. The second we start, she's been so quiet this whole time. So we're gonna ignore it. I hope you guys can't hear the barking because it's hold for just a moment. Hold
All right. Well, do you want me to start, Shira? Oh, she's going back. Anyway, that's my partner, Shira. So, welcome everybody. If you are joining us from everywhere, we are streaming on both LinkedIn and in YouTube as well. So, welcome to the show. But Shira, we'll get started.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Welcome to the Glass House, everybody. This is the crazy land that we live in, and I'm excited to be here. We're The Glass House is where we look at business from the inside and the outside to expose the gap between what's embedded and what's actually embodied. I'm Shara Halixer, the founder and chief momentum officer of Engage 3P.
And I'm Daisy Watkins, founder of DW Concepts and LimaPath.ai. I always have to say, in business today, if AI doesn't see it today, you don't exist.
Oh my gosh. If you are here today, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We know that you have a lot of choices. You don't have to choose us. There are so many things out there that you can be doing. We do not take it lightly that you're here. And we really want to make this as engaging as possible. Unfortunately, LinkedIn doesn't let us hear you, but you can certainly drop your comments. You can drop your questions, share your reactions. Let's make this as conversational as possible, not just a broadcast. And tell us what you're thinking, and we'll answer your questions. So let's get started because I've wasted enough time now with the dog, and we want to make sure this is a good one because I am really, really excited about this episode. And there's a truth that really nobody is saying out loud right now. And we're going to start with this, right? We are all mid-transformation right now. Every single one of us. I believe, right? Some further along than others, but nobody right now is standing still. AI is changing how we think, how we work, how we write, how we read, how we talk to each other. And it didn't arrive politely. It hit like a freight train. And almost none of us were truly ready. Now, one could argue we had a little bit of it when it came to autocorrect and some things that have been kind of coming along. But now we can kind of start to feel the panic, right? Scroll for 30 seconds on TikTok, on Instagram. Every third video, someone's asking the same question. What do I do about AI? Is this coming from my job? Here is a prompt that will save you miraculously. And we've all jumped on. And we skipped the very first question. Are we ready to live this? Not install it, but actually live it. That is what I have watched, where I have watched go wrong for over 25 years. We communicate, we train, we declare victory, and we call it done. But it was never done. And that is the gap between what gets embedded and what gets embodied. Today, we are going to go inside all of that.
Oh, Shira. And here is this is the part that most leaders miss. While you are bracing for the change inside your business, a second transformation's already happened and you do not control it. AI is answering questions about your company right now. Okay. Today, ready or not, it has already built an opinion of everything that the world has ever said. And most leaders have never once seen it. So we are watching two transformations at the same time. The one where you're trying to manage the inside and the one already running on the outside.
It's really true. And our guests today have built the instrument behind this work. Karina Dolston is an organizational psychologist, executive coach, and founder of the Actim Group. She helps senior leaders strengthen alignment, trust, and execution. She created Adcom Insights, a validated assessment that uncovers the root cause drivers behind performance, retention, and built the Ready, Set, Go capacity check, which also functions as a pulse check called Actim Plus, which measures change readiness, sustainability, and execution during AI, M&A, and any type of large-scale change. She's joined by Ailey Plout, consulting director at Actim, who partners with global organizations on leadership change and how people actually build new capability. Katarina, welcome to the Glass House.
Thank you. It's so great to be here, Shira and Daisy. We are very excited to get started, to discuss this, learn from each other, and hear about how everyone thinks about AI and how we try to envision the future that will be better and stronger for all of us.
Amazing. And is there anything, Ailey, that you want to add to the introduction, what we talked about?
No, thanks so much. Thanks so much for having us. I mean, I think there's one more guest you haven't fully introduced. He's kind of in the background there, but really happy to be here and discussing a really fun and exciting topic in AI.
That's fantastic. So I want to start with, we're going to break this into really 3 segments. This is insane. We're going to break this into 3 segments. So I have to share this because we talk about this all the time. There's always usually a technical glitch that happens within all of this. And now I have an actual animal glitch that is going on in front of us. This was not prepared at all. So welcome to live, I can't say live TV, but live whatever. So I want to make sure also we get our guests up on the stage and we understand. We have a LinkedIn user that I am going to assume is our dear friend, Laura. For some reason, it always says LinkedIn user. So Laura, if that is you, and if it's not, tell us who the LinkedIn user is. And hello, Heather. Welcome back. Heather is one of our dear friends. So I want to start with really what we were talking about here, which is, what does it mean to be ready, truly ready for change in general, right? It doesn't have to be technology change, although I think today that's the biggest thing that's driving all of us. And unfortunately, there's this fear factor that's happening with AI. But are we ready at this point, or we're just installing change? Who wants to take that one?
Yeah, no, I think it's important. I think the issue or the hard thing about imagining change and get change ready is really hard to see what that change will be, because it's somewhere we haven't been before. And you can do assumptions and guessing, but you know it's going to be very different from what you thought or who the bigwigs thought it would be.
And let's start at the beginning. What does readiness look like, right? What does it mean to be ready or not ready to start something?
Right. So the way I see it is, and I'm focused on organizational change, and I think professional readiness is a different matter. I'm not the expert on that. But organizational change is change readiness really depends on how the organization takes on new things. So what is the learning environment in the organization? Are it easy to do innovation and new thinking, finding new types of solutions? So that's really about how ready the organization is, even before the change. The second part of adapting change is how the staff will manage that extra pressure under change, the way I see it. And then how can they execute on their regular work as well as the change? Because that's really where the profit margin and the real implementation of change really shows up. And part of that is, let's say the first round, second round, third round doesn't go well. If we listen to what went well and didn't go well, which is part of being open to learning and understanding what went wrong, then we can implement that in how we absorb the rest of the change. So the feedback from how things are going, tying those three elements together is really important.
Ailey, do you want to add anything to that before I dig in?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about this in a prior conversation, Shira, about kind of how organizations and leaders may not necessarily be thoughtful about change. I think right now we're in an environment where we live in a copycat sort of culture, corporate America. I mean, if one Fortune 10 company sees a competitor rolling out a generative AI tool, you can bet the house they're following suit. The board hears about it, competitors are moving, and the pressure's on. So organizations are rolling out these tools, and right now it's AI, that's the hot tool, without really thinking about the people, organization, and culture perspective. And I think what we're seeing anecdotally is they're not thinking about that people side. They're not sensing the organization for readiness. It's really just the sense of urgency that's driving these decision makers and these organizations. So we'll get into this as we discuss further, but it's important that organizations really start to think about what's in place. Is the training in place? Are there adoption metrics? Does this specific team have the capabilities technologically and from a people side to use the tool well before just rolling out a tool? And that's sort of where our tools come in handy for companies. So just wanted to kind of put the maybe case for change in there and start the conversation with that thought.
Yeah, I'll just follow up on what Ailey said. So we collect data before the change happens, so that we know, where is the organization, how is it doing on absorbing change right now. Then you need objective data on how the organization is doing during the implementation. So you need to know which teams are ready to drive a pilot, what can we learn from that, which teams need more preparation before it's introduced. And before you spend money on AI without knowing those two objective data points, you may not be investing in a transformation. Instead, you might be buying technology the organization is just not ready to use.
So full disclosure, Daisy, sorry, do you want to say something first? Oh, okay. Full disclosure, you are my partner in change embodiment, right? When I was building change embodiment, which is my answer to why isn't change working anymore? Why doesn't traditional change management change? And I came to that understanding because traditional change management doesn't focus on the people, focuses on the thing that is changing, right? The thing that is being implemented. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's technology, process, leadership, or organizational transformation like M&A or that kind of thing. And having done it for so many years, I saw it over and over and over again. And so when I built change embodiment, I picked up the phone to Katarina and said, we need to talk, because this assessment, this instrument, is the vehicle that measures, you call it ready, steady, go, and I call it MIA. We're looking at motivation, intention, attention, because exactly what you said, going into something and not knowing that humans are ready to absorb and to ultimately embody is going to be a massive problem, right? It doesn't matter what it is. And so I think that that's so critical for any company that's thinking about doing something, because it just becomes theater, right? It just becomes implementation theater if all we care about is that we tick the box that we went live and whatever that is. And so it was really important that I looked at not just that measurement tool, that assessment tool of looking at it at the beginning, and we're going to talk about how it's not just the beginning, it's all the way through. And then building on top of that, the tools that are necessary to mitigate whatever's going on, right? It isn't just about doing the assessment, it's also having that mitigation factor as well.
Yeah, definitely. No, your expertise in change management and people is essential to be able to understand how to drive something like this. We measure it objectively. We measure through a validated assessment, but you kind of make sure that it's alive.
Right. We do it together.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get the data. I mean, Don't you want data to make informed decisions? And don't you want it to be a validated survey that you can rely on? So you get the data, analyze the data, understand what the hotspots are, and then we come in with our change management expert, aka Shira, and say, here's some interventions, here's some plans, here's how you really need to be preparing and executing. So that's sort of how the work would ideally go if companies were really thinking about how to do this in a thoughtful way.
Okay, so you answered the question. All of you answered the question was, what layer do they have an Actum versus your layer, Shira, of what you do? And you guys really in sync just answer that. And I just related similar to our guest last week, where he also was dealing with a SaaS platform for AI visibility, where he does the diagnostics, which is similar to what you guys do. I get that data from him to then now help the clients be seen, which is the execution, which is kind of what Shira does, of doing the steps for visibility. So I finally connected the dots. So
I'm so glad. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting, right? I mean, I know having been involved in change at so many different levels, and especially when we look at kind of big technology transformations, it's usually done at the board level, right? At the C-suite level, decisions are made. Why is this necessary? What are we doing? And for years, sometimes they make decisions. Obviously it takes a long time to decide what is the tool, how are we going to pay for the tool, what is the process going to be, how are we going to implement? And the people sometimes get involved when that ship is already miles and miles and miles and out into the ocean. And I don't want to speak for you, but we've talked about this so much. My argument with change embodiment is don't wait until that ship has already sailed out to say, are your people ready? Right? Let's take a look at this as early as humanly possible. And Katerina, you said it from the start. What if they're not? What if, are they able to take on other tasks? Because the one thing that I have heard in every single transformation I've ever been involved in is somebody comes to me and says, I'm not coming to your meeting today. I've got my day job to do and I don't have time for this one. Right? Or I've got too much on my plate and I'm burning out and I can't handle this. And what's so critical there is those are your SMEs. Those are your subject matter experts in their field. Those are the people that we value most, that we want to bring into these projects who can create value. And if we're burning them out and we're not giving them the opportunity to be well cared for during the process, the statistics tell us what we already know. They're out the door. Right? They're frustrated. These things don't happen in a week. These are months long, years long processes.
Yeah.
And so we have to protect them.
Yeah, I think part of that is to recognize that AI is not a solution to financial problems.
No.
So AI can really improve productivity, quality, all of that, but only if it's used thoughtfully, implemented, as I said before, in a pilot, used so that you really know what the gains are. Because if you can implement it well and do it well, it will not only increase your productivity or you will do better things, you'll do new things because you'll have time to innovate and think. So I'm all for AI implementation, and I really want to make it, solid and strong. And as a huge partner in that is consultants like Shira. I also want to say that HR is often put on the back foot of things and not included in those strategic decisions. So a shout out to all CHROs that, this is your time to really show how important your work is here.
Yeah.
Daisy, I thought you might be saying something. No? Okay. I think it's so true. I think that, I said in the opening that we're all in this, right? And we're being fed the fear factor of your job's going to disappear. What are you going to do? You need to learn AI. You need to be an AI expert. You need to be a prompting expert. Companies are laying off. We're going to talk about some of that later in the show. We've talked about it before. This rush to how are you going to pay for this, right? Because it's a massive, expensive initiative. How are we going to pay for this initiative? And the answer is we're going to lay off 15, 20, 10% of our organization to pay for technology. right? And that I think is kind of leads us to then what is that next step in that whole, okay, great. We've decided we're ready. Now here's the next step. What are we going to do about it? What does that process look like? And what are we going to achieve in doing this? Right. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. And then we're going to also share a little bit about the instrument and what that looks like and how they're going to get great information to support that.
Do you want to start, Ailey?
Yeah, I think one thing that kind of goes along with those layoffs is what is that impact on middle managers, or what is that impact on management? The structure may look flatter, but if you're cutting heads, doesn't that mean that middle managers, more folks are going to be rolling up to them if other middle managers are cut? So maybe that means it's fatter for the middle manager. So what does that mean for those individuals? How are they going to manage their load? Are you going to burn more people out with that? The impacts on your current staff. So thinking about kind of AI in that regard may also be useful. I mean, there's the positive side too. Like if you're a middle manager and you have some technological savvy, how can you use AI as a thought partner? I mean, we've had this conversation with clients about how leadership can be lonely and ambiguous, and middle managers are constantly needing to make judgment calls with incomplete information. I think using AI as a brainstorming partner, pressure testing things, thinking about ways to lead and manage, and because management can be ambiguous, using AI to kind of think through those ambiguous items, especially with many direct reports, and maybe taking out using agentic AI to cut out some of the administrative burden. That's kind of the positive side for these managers. But I think right now we're in a time where we're currently adopting AI. So kind of like double dipping, double work for these managers, one, managing more staff, and then two, trying to learn a new tool. That can be pretty challenging, but I think the future is brighter as kind of AI becomes a natural, tool for managers and for the workforce in general. I think it will be a value add for the reasons I mentioned, but right now could be a bit of a turbulent time. And so I'm thinking about the staff that are currently being kind of were laid off and the impacts on them. Because oftentimes when you do RIFs, you're not necessarily thinking of the additional burden on the current staff that remains. So that's kind of an interesting insight that we're considering as well. So
Heather had a comment that I think is really important. Daisy, can you see it on your screen? Do you want to read that for us and so everyone can see it?
Heather is asking, what is the impact of the tribal knowledge / institution knowledge that is removed from the company, I guess, when those people walk out of the door?
Right.
Right. I mean,
like you're turning it into a retention question, right?
Yeah.
And who are important to keep, who are, motivated and have a lot of deep knowledge about the organization. We know that, trying to rehire someone that has left, that has a lot of knowledge, is first of all 1.5 times the yearly salary. That's how much it costs to hire someone. Again, and embedded in that is knowledge that is really hard to recover. The knowledge of how that person manages, has their network throughout the organization or with vendors, etc. That's really hard to put a number on. So I think that's a very good question. Can that be replaced with a thoughtful implementation of AI or any other change? Knowing how much change the organization actually can take on is a big advantage to make that strategic decision, is that's what we propose.
So maybe a good time. Oh, sorry, Diz. I was going to say it might be a good time to show what this looks like. Can you walk us through kind of what what you're delivering, because you're absolutely right? If we're taking we're getting an understanding of, are they ready? Now we're talking about, you're in it and we want to ensure that they're not burning out, that they're not running out the door. We're looking at this through the entire transformation cycle. I think it'd be great to bring up that first screen to say, oh, fantastic. To say, and you can kind of walk us through, what does this mean when someone sees this information?
Right. So let's start at the base, which is, how does the organization look like today, whether they have a big change in front of them or not. So this is our organizational assessment. It's a validated tool. Takes about 7 to 9 minutes to do online. People can do it, from any online vector they have or platform they have. And it's built as a causal model. So if we start at the top, we see the principal foundation. So here is the conditions and the decisions that the leadership take and make for the workplace. So it might be about the vision and how we look at innovation, how we communicate, what type of resources are we going to put down on it. So we measure that as the frame, setting the stage for the team and how they can operate. So let's say the stage is really nice and people feel happy there. So they are, if we look at stage 2, now the team element, people are committed, engaged, they have high retention, etc., resilience. That is really how the organization's output is going to be done, right? So if we see it as a stage 1, 2, 3, it goes from the decisions, from the leadership, how this team is actually doing and performing their work, and that is immediately reflected on the organizational output. And what we look here is at efficiency, productivity, and quality. So this is the baseline of an organization. The fun part, if we can go to the next screen, is if you remember the 3 stages, and we don't have the first stage here because that's impacting the team element. Our assessment is built so that we can see what is driving the different outcomes for the team, such as commitment, engagement, retention. If you can see, we can see the primary drivers for commitment is feedback, inclusion, and selection. So if commitment is high, you're doing well on that for this specific organization. The same for engagement. So that is really a wonderful tool, because if you get the statistical correlation to what is driving outcomes in the organization, both on the team element and the organizational output, you really can understand what to do and do interventions in, instead of thinking, oh, everybody's burned out, let's get a new coffee machine. You can see what burnout is actually doing. We have burnout resilience, which is the opposite of burnout. So we know that burnout resilience, you build your resilience to burnout by having good teamwork, having an opportunity to grow in the organization. It doesn't only mean that you can go from, being a manager to senior manager, but it also means, can you expand in what you're actually doing? Also, what resources, not only computers, but time, resources, how you can get to your leader and get information about, am I doing the right thing or not? So this is really nice. And it's also the same thing. We can see how efficiency is driven by determination from the team, or agility and engagement. So this is the baseline. So let's move to the next slide, which will show us how we measure capacity for change. This is built on the same assessment, but this is a pulse. We can get the same information from the assessment to do a capacity check. So we do the assessment once a year, we do the pulse quarterly or every 6 months. And this is what you get. You get how ready the organization is to take on change. And here you can see the trend. If you look at the first below the ready score of 85, this is where we are in June 2026. 85 is the number. But the readiness for change has been, fluctuating. It's gone up and down. And you see the delta is between the baseline started at 80 June 2025 to 85 today, right? So here is the Ready, Steady, Go model, which is ready for change, steady to be able to sustain change under load, and
Right.
then how can you execute on that? So I want to stop here and hear what you're thinking, how you think this fits in your model. Shira and Daisy, your thoughts.
So, I have one simple change, and I'll let Shira talk because
No, go right ahead. Good. I want to
What-
know.
well, a lot of the work you're going to be doing is sitting in front of the leaders, whether it's just HR, whoever the target department or section of a corporation or a company is. So when you sit with them, what are you finding? And data is really important to me too, because that's how you calculate or you make projections, probabilities, right, to outputs.
Right.
So when you sit with them, what are you finding? Do you think that these organizations or the leaders that you're talking to have this data ready, or do you catch them off guard and go, wait a minute, we never really measured that, or really don't know how to measure that, or I didn't realize we have to measure that? Where are you finding them right now? Because that is also a big indicator whether they're ready in itself as the decision maker to lead this change. So then you have to pivot a little bit. So it's curiosity from my end. What are you observing? Because now they hear AI and they think AI can pull all that for them, but they don't realize using AI means we have to input that data for AI to work properly. So
right. Very good question. I love that question. First of all, it depends on who your audience is, as you say. Let's say you're talking to a CFO. They love that we can put numbers on behavior. They really love that because they have not seen that before. Secondly, the concepts around the Ready, Steady, Go is a little bit new for everyone, but they feel that it really talks to them on what to do and what the exact operational capacity is in the organization within these three areas. So this is really a quick snapshot of what's going on and what has happened when you start measuring it more and more. Another aspect that people find interesting is how do I then put this into life, right? How do I use these numbers? Because people are used to using other types of data, financial data, etc., into life. And that is really depending on how seriously people take this information. And if they see that this is really a good extrapolation of what they actually need to do, because it's really showing them like an X-ray, what's happening in the organization in a very deep level.
Okay.
I think you hit it on the head, right? It's new to organizations to ask the question, are we ready for that change? Right? There's an impetus that's happening. Somebody says, we need to do this. We need a new ERP system. We need a new HCM system. We need a complete restructure of our organizational design for whatever reason, right? All these things are happening and nobody's ever asked the question. Certainly I've never seen it. Are we capable of taking this on right now? Because there's usually some pressing matter that they say, this is the most important thing. We need to do this. And so the idea that we need to sit back and say, wait a second, can we take this on? Will we be successful? Is really, I think, the most critical part of it. We desperately need to know that the organization needs to know that it's going to be successful within their population, within their people, right? That's where I think we're starting to see the shift in the way that they're starting to talk about it and realizing that this is what's going on. And right. I think that our friend Josh said, I think it was in episode 2, and I've been using this so much lately. He brought up the notion of, he told this very funny story, and we relate this now to why everyone's running to AI. And the story that he tells is that 100+ years ago, there were all these department stores in New York, and one of the stores wasn't doing well, and the owner sent the manager to go to the other stores to say, why are they so busy? Why do they have so many customers? We don't. And the guy went across the street and he went into the other stores and he looked around and the people everywhere, and he came back And he said to the owner, I know why everyone's there and they're not here. And the owner said, why? What do they have that we don't? And he said, oh my God, it's so exciting. They have escalators. We need to get an escalator. If we had an escalator, they would come. And the owner said, well, that's very interesting. We're a one-story building. Where would you like to put it?
Yeah, that's a little bit what Ailey was talking about before, right?
Yeah.
That's what's happening with AI, right?
Mhm.
You said it. Everyone says we need AI. Well,
Right.
what are you going to do with it? Why do you want it, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm not, and we agree with you, Katerina. We love AI. We think it's great. We use it every day. It's fabulous. And I think that, and that's why I started this by saying we're all undergoing this crazy transformation in our lives, both personally and professionally. But an organization will fail in a transformation if their people can't do it, if they can't ultimately embody it, if it doesn't
Right.
become how they live, how they work. And so what I saw with you and what you've developed is this ability to understand that. And so for me, what was so critical is all of the data is amazing. And now we can pinpoint where we need to focus, right? What do we need to do to ensure we drive that success so that not just the implementation, not just the project is successful, but the organization itself is successful, right? That there's a really good, healthy way of growing and developing and working. And I think that was so critical.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what I just wanted to add, sorry, Ailey, you go ahead after that. What we can do with our data is just what you said, Shira. You can cut and slice the data however you want. You can do it by role, by department, by age, all of those things, so that you can really find the teams where things are working well, where they're not. So that's all I want to say. Ailey, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, I really like Daisy's question. So I did have a thought on that. Like, what are we seeing in our conversations with clients and just with colleagues and with networking? I think when showing them this tool and by using this tool, it really kind of lights a fire under CFOs and CHROs and the C-suite when they kind of can see the numbers and maybe it's the red. It's like, we are not ready for this. It kind of lights a fire like, okay, we need to do something. It is like a call to action. I think that's another really important thing from just seeing them. So, you can sense when you're in the C-suite, you can sense what's going on in the organization. Hopefully, if you have your pulse on the org, but numbers really help to, I think, push that forward. And I think a lot of the times it confirms maybe what they're thinking in the background, but this really kind of ignites, I think, folks to really start thinking about the action. And even if they're already midway through a change, midway through an implementation or transformation, there is the possibility you can run the numbers now and maybe do a little backtracking. We start training on the certain skills, do some mentoring, thinking about those types of interventions midway through. It's never too late. So
never too late. Right. For all of you out there who have started something and you're thinking, wow, I want to get going on this. Absolutely. We can make that happen. I'm going to post a question up here that comes from Robert. Hey, Robert. He's asking, how are you measuring these metrics and what specifically are you measuring and how are you measuring it? So is that too big for this conversation or can we give a high level?
We can do it. We can get a high level. Hi, Robert. Thanks for that great question. Being a numbers person, I really love that question. So I try not to go too deep and we can set up a call afterwards, Robert. So first of all, you saw the first assessment. That's a validated assessment where we really looked at all of these aspects. So these are, we're measuring these 9 components, whereas we have many more in the big assessment. But for each of these components, we've made sure that when we are measuring trust, we don't measure something that is very close, like such as communication. We're not measuring communication where we're talking about trust. So we've done that validation, and we also know that the causal effect works in the assessment. Then when we went to this, we wanted to give organizations a really quick tool to look at their capability for anything that's happening in the organization. And so we picked these components uh, uh, for looking at Ready, which is the learning environment. How can you take in new information? How can you think outside the box? The Steady being, how does the team really manage to carry that weight? You can see the components that are included in it. And then for the Go, is it clear what we're doing? Is the strategy really working? What feedback can we go back and tell and do to Ready, the components within Ready, to make them even better, to strengthen this loop? So that's how we measure it. This is a survey that takes 2 to 3 minutes to do online. It's very quick, gives you a lot of information. You can, as you say, we have locations here to show how those are going. We could just as well have showed departments, etc.
I love
I think
that.
that answers the question.
No, I think it's fantastic. And I think it really provides for us an understanding then of, what it is that you're looking for in order to ensure that you're getting the right information and you have the right data to present to leadership. Right.
So do we want to look at the last 2 slides, which shows how you measure the transformation
sure.
of AI?
Sure, we can
We
do
are
that.
using the same instrument, right? The Ready, Steady, Go, to look at the transformation. So here we are measuring first the baseline, how ready is the organization. Then we also measure how is the organization ready for AI, as an example, for change. Then you can see the delta for the components. So for this change, agility was down by 20 points. And innovation was down by 15, but people were really trusting the measure and how we would introduce the change, which gives us the index that, let's say the baseline is 85, their transformation is 75. If you look at the box top left corner, you can get the Ready index. So you know that for any other change, the organization would be at 85, which is the baseline. For this specific AI implementation, the Ready index is lower. It's at 0.88. 75 is the number. So we do the same for Ready, Steady, Go. That's just what I wanted to show.
Yeah.
And is there a second piece to this? Or is this was there a second piece to this? Is there the next slide that you wanted to show?
No, this is I think this is the headline of how
Perfect.
you measure where you need to go. And then if you filter this information, you can see which departments has a problem with agility, innovation, burnout resilience, retention, etc. So that really gives you.
I just put on the screen here, I don't know if you can see it, but we're guessing that is our friend. You seem to be one of the few people to measure AI readiness. Do you think it's a big gap between AI readiness and change readiness in general?
That's such a timely question, because I'm assuming that question was asked right before we started talking, or as we're talking about the transformation index, which is exactly what it measures. So very timely. And yes, I think the answer is there is a big gap. What we're seeing anecdotally, what we're seeing in the market is people feel anxious. They feel a little apprehensive about AI specific change. I think we talked about this a little bit, but around, is it going to take my job? Do I have the technological capacity to adopt it into my workflows? Am I able, we all saw the headlines from Amazon kind of forcing or incentivizing employees to make sure they're using their AI tokens, even if it's taking away from their day job. They need to get through these tokens in order to show they're using AI. Is that leading to burnout? So for all those reasons, I think we are seeing a gap with AI specific change. More so in like the Ready index piece around trust, I think, and around kind of the internal psychological elements of it. So yeah, we are seeing a gap, and that's why we have this tool, the transformation index, to really put numbers on it, and using the index to say, hey, this we'll use AI as an example of the change. That's really, scaring people. It's making people anxious. How are we going to quell their anxieties? How are we going to bring them along on this journey? And that's exactly why the tool is there. yeah, we are definitely seeing that gap, especially with AI transformation. So great question.
I think it's interesting, right? Like I said, we've been put into this fear factor mode. We're going to talk a little bit as we talk about our outside story in, and I want to make sure we have time because again, these hours just flies by. It might be a good opportunity to maybe, Stacey, do you want to address that now? Do you want to kind of kick us off? I know you wanted to talk about it today.
Yeah, now we can talk about, let's talk about our outside story now, because there's some layers to it too that
Yeah,
that
I think it's a
contribute
perfect time, to bring this in.
So every week, as Shira has mentioned, we bring in a story from the outside into the room, because the glass house is not about only our own experience. It is what is happening out there in the real world to the people watching this week. It's about Klarna. The big guy now that we know, buy now, pay later company, went all in AI customer service in 2023. Okay, I put context around this too, that AI, as we refer it to right now, is through the large language models. For ChatGPT was the first one who kicked this out in November 2022. So they're first adapters, obviously. They partnered with OpenAI, cut about 700 customer service roles, and bragged that the chatbot did the work of 700 agents, handled 2/3 of their requests, and it was their efficiency story that was central to their IPO. Again, there's something financially tied to some of these changes, right? Then the real bill arrived. The AI could not handle the nuances of complex problems. Customers got generic repetitive answers. Satisfaction dropped. So Klarna reversed and started rehiring the humans. The CEO said it straight. Cost had been too predominant a factor, and what they ended up with was lower quality. There's a sting to this, clearly. They installed a change and called it a win on cost. They never validated whether it delivered the thing customers actually needed. They hit ROI and missed return on intention, so they priced it twice. The cost is really higher. And we both just discussed this, that the rehire costs us twice as much now, bringing them all in. Again, at that stage, they forgot the human factor of how the customer is what brings in your financials, and they bypass that. So
yeah. So here's what gets me in this, right? Is they didn't have a technology problem, right? They didn't have an issue with the implementation at all. They really had a readiness problem, and they didn't see it because they were reading the wrong numbers. They read cost. This is what it's going to cost me. This is how I'm going to pay for it. And they never read whether or not the change actually delivered the service the customer needs. That is the entire difference between embedded and embodied. The AI was installed. It never truly got embodied into how the work really gets done, right? That's really where the challenge lies and where they weren't paying attention. And the part that I really kind of respect is the CEO eventually said it out loud, said cost drove the call, quality paid for it. Most leaders, they will never admit that. They just live quietly with the worst version of it and say, oh, we went live, ding, 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 isn't this great? It's all done. We're ready to go, right? We've succeeded and we've done what we needed to do. And so I think it's really important to talk about that a little bit. Katarina and Ailey, from your perspective, I think that I talk a lot about, and then I'll stop. We talk about return on investment here, but I also talk about return on intention, because that's a critical factor when we look at change. What was the thing that we intended to do? It wasn't just about cutting heads in this case. That's how they were going to pay for it. What they wanted to do ostensibly is improve customer service. That was the intent, was to use AI to do that. And that was the colossal failure that they didn't consider. So I'd love to know what you all think about that.
I have two thoughts right off the bat. One, do you think there was a CHRO in the room raising the red flag? That's my first thought. My second thought is, have you ever been on the phone with Verizon or Xfinity or whoever and enjoyed when you're speaking to the AI bot? That seems like an interesting business decision. So those are my two kind of silly thoughts off the bat, but I'll hand it to Katarina if she has a more serious response.
Yeah, no, I understand, and I love the ambition, right, behind it. We want to give our customers better, the I think at the base of AI implementation and in AI usage is not is it human or is it AI? I think it's the partnership of human and AI that's really going to glow, because you still need humans to make the strategic decisions, the human to understand the small variations in the tone of what the person is asking you about in this case. And I think that's really where the solution, AI solution, is going to be, and that's really going to make productivity, quality, new products, new ideas really to expand and grow. So with AI, you suddenly have an extra brain. And a brain that's always better than yours, right? But it doesn't have the judgment. It doesn't have the moral clarity. It doesn't have the ethics. It doesn't have, the sense of what other human wants. So, don't overuse it, but definitely use it.
It also doesn't, we talk about this all the time, it doesn't have context, right? It can't understand the nuance. It doesn't have history to be able to make a comparison based on experience. These are all human factors that impact the way that we exist. That human element of customer care, right, isn't just a bot answering a simple question. Now, right before we kicked off a couple hours ago, I was on with a bot on a platform trying to get questions answered. And I got, answers, right? They're answers. They're not the answers I like. They're not the answers that really helped me. And I just didn't have the energy to fight it, right? And I think that's where we're missing the mark in understanding the difference between what it can do and what it can't do, right? That's the hard part of understanding that.
Oh, very much so. Your context means a lot, because if you don't use your brain, number one, to AI and really have the real conversations you want to get the answers that you need for whatever the task is. This is where people saying they am adopting to it are not really adopting it. They're copy and pasting it, which is actually a lot more scary than thinking that companies are implementing this without even their leaders knowing what function AI is going to do for each of the department and each of their employees. So again, aside from the readiness that you find is like, how are they going to adapt? Are their employees going to adapt to a major change? One, most of them are probably scared of it. They don't know how to use it. I mean, they're scared of the fax machine when it first came out. They were scared of the internet when it first came out. And imagine this, it actually thinks for you. Taken out of context can really be scary for a lot of people. And so a lot of companies now too, from what I've noticed, other than, give the example about Amazon, they want to spend their tokens, like use so that they use AI. The reverse is happening to a couple of companies where they're saying, lay off on using the tokens. We're running out of money. We already surpassed our budget for 2026, and it was only in March, right? And so there's now the reverse of that, because the cost to use AI is getting higher and higher, which makes it impossible for people to use it more heavily. So that's got to balance somehow, and people are not going to be afford to use their tools. And so that's why they're having these IPOs, because they got to get the money from somewhere. So
speaking of the balance, and just adding on to Katarina's comment about humans and machines working together. I don't know if you all saw Claude Fable 5 come out. I saw an interesting use case today. I know we're close on time, so I'll be quick. A customer service rep had Claude Fable 5 on in the call, and it was transcribing what the customer was asking for. I think it was some sort of plumbing company or contractor. And as the transcript was going, the Fable 5 created a pricing model and sort of a way to get exactly what the customer was asking for in real time. So it was like building this intricate and like engaged model for the service rep in real time to work with that customer. And I think that's a great balance and use case, and kind of ties the conversation together, like working with the machine, using the human judgment and human skills to talk to the to the client or potential customer while having AI in the background doing the intricate, intelligent work. So I thought that was an interesting use case.
I think any AI usage done correctly and in partnership with humans is good. The only thing we don't want is to have AIs as our bosses or decision makers. So I think everything ahead of that is like us playing in the sandbox, trying to learn how to build the castle, and then, by that prototype, build a real house.
Right. I love that. So at the end of every episode, before we close, we like to give some action items to our guests. What are the things that you can do as takeaways in the next week until we meet again? They will be up on LinkedIn on Friday. I do it as a Friday post to remind everybody. And one of our guests, who I think might be a friend of yours, Damuel, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, asked this a while ago in the conversation, and I've been holding off. So this will be the question for you guys to be able to help out. But I have a very simple one this week to help you get ready, which is, what is the next change that your team, your organization is trying to take on? Name one thing, write it down, put it in your AI tool, whatever it is. Name one thing that you will stop, pause, or hand off in order to make room for this new change. What is the one thing that you need to set aside, even temporarily, in order to do that? And if you can't name one, right, one thing that you have to set aside, you've got a wish of something to happen, not a real rollout ahead of you, right? Because it can't be that there's nothing going on. So just ask that one question. What is it that you are going to take a pause on? And then we can talk about it.
Very good, Shira. So
Daisy,
mine would be, I want you to search for your own company the way a candidate or a customer would. Okay? Not from you finding out about yourself, which is what I always say. Ask an AI assistant, what is it to work for your company, at your company right now, and whether you are worth buying from. Because these are the things they're going to be asking, right? So read what comes back. This is the version of you the market already sees. This is what I meant earlier, that it already has made a judgment about you. This is because it's built from everything the world has said, not from the press release. These are now humans being able to enter into whatever medium that they use or platform they use to say something about your company, whether social media, whatever surveys are out there that are public. I want you to do that because that will give you a true validation of what they're saying about you. And what AI is actually already making that judgment, telling the humans right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. That's interesting.
Ailey, Katerina, do you guys have one?
I have two. So the question on the screen was like one piece of advice I think would be before your next, if I was talking to a business leader, it would be before your next AI or big transformation decision, pause and measure the human side of readiness by putting numbers on behaviors. That's what I would do. That's what I would say. Pause. Let's think. Let's try to be thoughtful. Let's try to get some insights and some numbers before we go ahead with any sort of major transformation. So that's what I would say. And then one question I'd leave the audience with is, I've been thinking about this. If a work psychologist or historian in the year 2300 or something looked back on AI and its impact on the workforce in the year 2026, what would they say we got right? What would they miss? And what did we underestimate? I kind of think that's an interesting way to think strategically about these things, is thinking about the historical side of it. So just an existential thought for the audience to think about between now and next week.
I love that. You know, when you talk about, and this is why we're partnering and this is why I do what I do, right? Which is I spent over 10 years in software sales, in ERP and HCM software sales. And I was involved in those cycles of building the business case and justifying the purchase and creating the implementation plan and, going through the entire cycle of decision-making around the technology. And like I said earlier, that takes months, if not years. And what was never touched upon ever was asking that question. Right? Financially, we might be ready. Are our humans ready? And that was the thing that rang so true for me when I built Change Embodiment. I said, this can't be the way we continue to do this. We have to look at this differently. And, that's why we're talking about it. It's so critical.
So my question to the audience would be, what is one boring thing you can offload to AI? And I would like, really curious to hear what that would be and how successful was it during this week?
Oh, I love that. Oh, we're gonna have to have like a whole thing going. We'll document all of these and everyone can chime in and do it. We got some great comments here at the end. I want to make sure just one other thing, and obviously you all know how to reach us and we'll put that up in a moment, but I want to make sure you all know how to reach our guests today. And so we've got the QR codes to their LinkedIns. So I will say on their behalf, feel free to reach out and connect and let us know what you think. And we'd obviously love to work with everybody, and Katerina and Ailey and I would love to work with you on understanding what is your readiness for change. How do we ensure success in change? How do we get that return on investment as well as the return on intention, and make your people as successful as your technology or your whatever transformation you're doing inside your organization? I think that we can make things so much better in the end. And that's what I'm excited about and why I'm excited about what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
It was wonderful.
It was great. I also want to say, if you want to get in touch with Daisy or me, we'll also put this information up here as well. I don't think I'm putting the right card, actually. I think that's right. Which is the right one?
They're both correct.
Okay. Okay, fine. So yeah, I want to thank you both for being here. We are a little bit over, but that's okay. We love the conversation, and honestly, I think it could have gone on for hours more. It looks like we have some more comments in the loop that we didn't even get to, so we'll make sure we put all this out there, and everyone has a chance to talk to us and reach out and let us know what's going on. Daisy, what about you?
This was awesome. You guys are the first double guest that we have, so this is super cool. Love both your to-do action items, especially thinking to the future, Illy. It's like I'm always thinking, and so it's one of the things that I'm going to take from this conversation, and a lot more. But thank you so much for joining us, and feel free to reach out. And if you want to be a guest again, we invite you to come and talk about what you're living in right now in the AI world, not just even in AI, just anything that you want to talk about for the humans to want to know. So thank you again, everybody.
Thank you so much. We learned a lot.
Good. Right. Well, I think we're gonna have to get you back again, because this was not enough time for sure.
Yeah.
And no Rosie next time.
No, we want to see Rosie.
You want to see Rosie? You want to come here, Rosie? Yeah. No, she's mad at me, so I don't think she's coming. But I'll put a picture of her up with the post of this when we have the recording. I'll put a picture up there.
That sounds great.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.